Hey Matt, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Jasmine. How you doing?
Good, good. Welcome everybody to another episode of Splice of Life Science Marketing. This is actually going to be our last episode for the year. I can't believe how fast the time has gone.
I know, 14 episodes in, I think it is, and that'll draw to the end season one, and we'll start season two at the beginning of 26, which will be really exciting.
We should have confetti flying around now to celebrate.
Yeah, or we should be wearing Christmas jumpers.
All right, I've got my reindeer earrings. That's as close as I'm going to get right now.
That's fair enough. As you can see, I'm still wearing grey, so I need to go and grab a red jumper if we're going to do
Yeah.
anything. But I'll spare myself the embarrassment of that.
So today we wanted to talk about an event that you and I were at last week. That's the SAMPS, or Sales and Marketing Professionals in Life Sciences annual conference that took place December 3rd and 4th in Boston. And the theme was about the human AI advantage. And you were one of the speakers and also one of the workshop facilitators.
Yeah, it was a fantastic event, and I know that you did a lot of work putting together the agenda and working to put it together. And it was so well organised. The room was fantastic. We had views over the Charles River and sunset just from up the top of the hotel. The Hyatt Regency was just phenomenal. But yeah, it was really really good event. Had so many exciting conversations and the sorts of conversations that you couldn't have with an AI. That was exciting to get out of this little room here and get to see you in person, but also so many people in person. It was a really great event, and ever since, my LinkedIn has certainly blown up with just how much positivity from the event and how much people enjoyed the whole day. It was really really good.
I agree. The energy was really, really high. The buzz in the room during the networking event, as well as during the breaks, after the presentations, was just so palpable. And in fact, there were times when I had trouble getting everybody to get back into their seats to kick off the next presentation. And I think similarly, those kinds of conversations don't happen over Zoom or over Teams meetings. Those kinds of opportunities where you can listen into some other conversation and join another conversation doesn't happen when we're all working remotely. So there's a lot of power still, even today, in meeting in person and coming together as a community.
I think it's probably going to increase the need for those. I think as we see more AI generated content and the quality of video, the quality of imagery that AI can create, we may even see AI avatars joining meetings and being a digital twin of us and having some knowledge of what we're doing, and being maybe able to ask questions at least about the status of projects and things like that. The need for that human to human connection is probably going to increase. And
I
so
hope so. Also, thought where you were going to go with this is, as people are starting to not trust what's real or what's AI created, the only reality, in fact, is when you meet in person.
I think that's going to be a huge part of it. I think there's already a bit of a backlash in some places about what is real and what isn't. And while I think there are huge advantages of using AI and applying AI to solve challenges, I think that there's going to be a big distrust of certain media as well. So I think it's a case of those face-to-face interactions becoming more and more important over time.
Hmm. Hmm. I certainly hope so. I enjoy that.
That was great.
Was there anything that you found surprising over the day and a half?
I thought what was really surprising, I know that you started off by sort of asking people's opinions about AI and where they sort of sat on a scale of being an AI skeptic to being all in. Most people kind of had the same sort of opinion of cautiously optimistic about AI, the same sort of thing that we found at when we were interviewing people at LRIG. So I thought that was interesting. I think the other thing that was interesting was that a few people changed their opinions and became a little bit more positive about AI. But I think what really surprised me was the number of people that sort of thought, I need to do a little bit more now, and how the talks and the day really opened their eyes to what was possible and what we could be doing with AI if we just look around it. So that was what's interesting. Companies that are so on the cutting edge of what they do, and yet maybe not cutting edge at applying the tools that are available to them.
Yeah, what was surprising for me was how wide-eyed everybody was at what was possible. During your workshop, and especially during Andy Crestodina's workshop, where he would talk about a particular use case and then give folks prompts to try that particular use case in their own situation. And it was almost sort of like this childlike, wow, oh my God, look at this. I just built a castle out of Lego kind of feeling in the room, which I found surprising. I somehow thought that more people would have had those experiences already.
I think that there's a level of adoption of AI where people are quite comfortable using it for writing text,
Hmm.
but I don't think people are using it in the same way as, I'm going to create a persona AI, and then I'm going to use that to check my work, to check what's on the website, to use it to create content. I don't think people are disrupting entire processes. They're looking at kind of point solutions, and I think a lot of people are still using AI as very narrow tools rather than sort of seeing the systemic disruptive effects that it really can have.
Yeah, I like the way Andy Crestodina summarizes this. It's not so much about the efficiency, it's about the deficiencies that AI can point out and help you resolve.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it shows as well the deficiencies in the existing processes. One of the things that I absolutely love about AI is, when we're talking about persona, we struggle to put ourselves in the shoes of the customer and understand whether that's the persona or actually the person that we're speaking to at the other end of a call or in a meeting. We struggle to be able to bridge that gap. And so I think that with AI, we can really show, well, actually, here's the spectrum of all space. This is where our personas sit. Within our ICPs. Here's where their personalities are, and let's look at how we can get closer to them. And I think it really helps us to show that deficiency of our understanding, of our ability to move towards the customer and really be able to solve their problems and their needs, and really be able to communicate how they want to be able to communicate it too. And I think the other thing that I learned through trial and error and quite an embarrassing public failure that I showcased was how even when you build an AI role play for a sales call, that even though you've built it and you've specified the targets, that you can miss them so wildly, because I only scored 50% on that test the first time I did it. And that was not made up. That was me genuinely trying to do a sales pitch and see how I did. And I'd created the persona and the scenario within Udemy AI, and yet I missed the mark by so much on that pitch. And I showed a snippet of the best bit, which still showed a failure.
But I think to me, that was a hugely valuable example of how you need to go back and forth. It's not just, prompt, get the right prompt, and out comes the answer, and off you go to generate the next set of tasks. It's really a dialogue, and there's a continuous improvement loop that I think a lot of people have been missing out on that you really brought to the fore with your example.
Yeah, I think there's also the false comparison as well. We look at AI, and if AI doesn't give us the right answer first time, it doesn't work. It's not good enough, which is fair. But then there's the human in the loop that's maybe not giving it the right information either. But then I think we also have to look at ourselves and how many humans are perfect. I know I've certainly never written anything myself before AI that didn't need some spell checking. In fact, when I was writing my PhD thesis, I somehow managed to add an extra character, so it was IT apostrophe S. It was the wrong version of the word. And I had to go and do a global change
Hmm.
because I'd made this mistake time and time again because my fingers just somehow made a mistake. Now, that's pure human error, but we expect the AI to be better than that. And that's what's really interesting, that kind of we expect those outputs. And what I really hope to show is that we can use AI not just to create things for that are outputs that are better, but actually how we can help use AI to help ourselves get better, both from role playing, but also how to learn better and more in our own modes as well. And that was something that really struck me, was that by getting all this information about account intelligence and buyer intelligence and personalities, I could get all of this massive data, and I could overwhelm myself with just too much information that I couldn't absorb. And even though I'd read it, and think I've understood it, I haven't actually taken that in. We talk about cognitive offloading quite often, that we give the AI jobs to do, but then we're not really absorbing that information ourselves. We haven't done the hard work. And I think that's something that I really noticed through the creation of that talk, that actually by creating that a scenario where I was going to go out and pitch to a potential customer of theirs, and I was going to go through this process, that what I realized is actually I don't learn as fast as maybe I think I do. And that really being able to absorb that level of detail, you have to go through different learning modes to really absorb it, to be able to get better at this stuff. And you can't just expect the AI's got all this information for me. It's at my fingertips, yes, but it's not on the tip of my tongue. I've not learned it. I've not absorbed it. And I think that's something that's going to be really, really interesting as we go forward into this sort of age of AI, where real expertise is going to show by the ability to actually absorb and communicate that information.
I've had the same experience about learning about myself and my learning style. And through learning about that, I actually am prompting differently. I'm asking for it to provide more combination information, both written and visual. Those are my learning styles, not as much auditory. And I think you're right. There's so much power, yes, in the education system, but even as professionals in having AI understand our learning abilities and customizing to that so that in turn we actually elevate ourselves as professionals.
Yeah. I mean, I know that I learn by doing. One of the best things I do. I can learn by reading and I can understand, but I learn best just by doing and experimenting and that side of things. So I find that if I can combine different modes of learning, so reading, listening, maybe watching a video or something, and getting those different combinations, and then being able to practice as well, that's really where I get the most value. So I love experimenting and learning from the experiment. I mean, I guess that speaks to the scientist in me, but yeah, that kind of feels that's where that combination of modalities really benefits. And of course, with AI now and tools like Notebook LM, you can create those other modalities. You can create the quizzes, and AI gives us tools that we didn't have even just 3 years ago. And that's to me is just so powerful, and something that I think that's getting overlooked in so many of the conversations about, AI is going to steal our jobs. Maybe it's
I
going to get better at our jobs, help us get
I
better.
agree. The quizzes have been fascinating. The flashcards. I really like the flashcard function in Claude and in ChatGPT. Those flashcards have taken the place of the post-it notes I used to have on my desk and on my wall. So yeah, I think there's so much potential that you and Andy Crestadina surfaced at the SAMPS meeting. The other learning I had was from Stacy Sherman, who was the keynote speaker, and she spoke about customer experience or CX. And her point is that there is a role for AI in CX, but keep in mind that there has to be a workflow connection between that AI and the ultimate human. They're not two separate departments, two separate entities.
Yeah, when you look at service design and service design theories, I think that one of the big problems that the organizations typically face, and Stacey did a great job of highlighting this and sort of bringing it to life. But I think one of the challenges is that we often have discrete departments where information doesn't flow across those areas. And I think very often what we find is that with AI at the moment, AI doesn't have the agency that a human can have. But very often we get frustrated with customer service if we phone customer service because they don't have the agency to fix the problem either. And so one of the challenges I think is with organizations is making sure that we're able as customers to get through to somebody that has agency to resolve the problem. And actually that resolution of the problem may only be to make you feel heard. I think there's a great example from Simon Sinek who says it doesn't matter that you can or can't fix the problem, but can you make it feel like you've been heard and that somebody's tried to do it and tried to solve your problem? And that's a big difference. rather than just getting the sort of computer says no response. But let me have a look and see what we can do. I'm so sorry, we can't book you on another flight. There's just nothing else we can do today. But here's this, and let me see if I can do something for you. And really just sort of being able to sympathize and understand the human condition behind the problem. That can make all the difference in how we feel about the situation we've encountered.
Yeah, I think it's also around the handoffs from AI to the human. While years and years ago, those handoffs from one human to another were not efficient. Over time, they became more efficient. And so the customer's expectation now is that the handoff between AI, your chat bot, whatever form of AI you're using, and the human is going to be efficient. There's no longer a customer understanding that, okay, there's a gap there. We get it. Technology is technology. No, that's not an excuse anymore. And I think she really surfaced that customer pain point quite highly that I think a lot of people in the audience may have either forgotten or didn't realize was happening.
And I think it's really interesting because she made me think of some stories I've heard of Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon, who would say that you can look at data or you can look at the anecdotes, and quite often it's the anecdotes are correct, that there are problems that the data doesn't show or the aggregate data doesn't show, but the anecdotes really will show up. And sometimes it's really important for us to try and be our own customer, to try and phone up the helpline and see what happens. And I wonder how many CEOs in our space have ever done that. I've ever actually phoned up and said, hey, I've got a problem with this. What's going on? And actually being able to try and resolve a problem. And so I think that sort of undercover boss, that undercover
Exactly.
experience, as it were, is so important because actually, I think often the aggregate data that gets reported up doesn't surface those challenges. And so I think that there's a real opportunity for us through AI, just really focusing on who is our customer and what is important to them is going to be really, really important. And in the age of AI, where information is going to be democratized and shared, and where experiences are going to be spoken about, and the AI that we use to do our searches is going to find out about those experiences, we actually need to be far more focused on customer experience and what does it mean to be a customer? And what does it mean to our customers to be a customer? And for that loyalty. So I think there's a huge opportunity for us now to really focus on making those experiences not just okay, but really something magical, as Stacey said. And that's going to be more and more important.
It's walking in your customer's shoes. I know that's a really, really old saying, but it's never been more relevant as it is today. What is that experience, whether it's a new workflow or whether it's an old workflow? Walking in those shoes and putting your customer's hat on is so, so important. What I've done in the past is divide my team up into team A and team B. And once there's a new workflow, have one of those teams experience that new workflow. You'd be surprised how many times you press a different button than what you intended to press when the workflow was designed. Or you don't see a certain section on the menu when you thought, geez, this is a no brainer. It's obvious when you're looking at it through a different lens.
I think it's really interesting to do that exercise and really be able to understand, what are those behaviors? I did quite a bit of hidden needs research during my MBA, and we looked at what those behaviors were and tried to understand some of those customer needs, but also what are those customer workarounds. And one of my favorite stories was that a European manufacturer called Miele, and they make home equipment. And one of the things that they did was they studied asthmatics and people with dust allergies. And so they actually watched them vacuuming their houses. And what they realized was that people would be cleaning the same spot over and over again because they didn't know when it was clean. Dust particles are charged. And so they did a very simple sort of charge meter within the airflow so they could see when the spot was clean or not. And so by doing something simple like that, you could really change your customer's workflow because rather than them having to clean the floor 10 times, they could clean it once and go, oh, it's clean now.
Mm.
And just those little things can make such a big difference. And so I think really being able to focus in on those customer needs across the entire service journey, from understanding what the product needs to be to actually understanding how service delivery should be, is so important. I did some research when I was leading a big e-commerce transformation. And one of the things was that when people were ordering oligonucleotides, that there was a huge amount of stress involved in actually copying the sequences from one document to another for placing orders. And partly that's because, particularly when you were selling into diagnostics labs and these are big orders, if they got one letter wrong, that was a big expense, but also could be a long time to get the manufacturing right, to then be able to get through the validation, the testing, and everything else. It was a big deal. And so by simply making reordering easy, we got rid of that stress for them entirely. And so there was sort of these things where you can look at those needs and those sort of service experiences and go, you know what, we're making this really difficult for somebody without intentionally doing so. Even though it's easy to think, oh, we've just copy and paste a cell. Well, actually, from one Excel sheet to another, or one Excel sheet to an ordering system, but actually some of those transformations can be incredibly difficult to do. And so if we can make sure that we understand what our customers need and that whole service journey, we can make life so much easier
Right.
and build so much customer loyalty and brand affinity.
So, speaking of making things easier, let's round out this conversation by making it easier for our audience to understand what were the three take-home messages that you got from SAMPS last week.
Well, I think the first one has to probably come from Stacey, which would have been the customer experience is the entire journey. We all know this, but the way that she articulated that in a beautiful example and sort of case study was really, really powerful for me. So that was the first. The second, it was probably from my own talk, and that you almost have to earn the right to educate. So by trying to bring humor and entertainment into that journey, I really felt that made a big, big difference. And it's something that I've worked on a lot this year, thanks to Mark Schaefer's public speaking course. Really sort of taught me to try and be as audacious as possible, but also to try and make sure that you're breaking things up to earn the right to educate. So that was something that I thought was really important. And then I think finally, my last takeaway would be probably from Andy's workshop, which was just seeing people light up, seeing the potential of being able to use AI in different ways. So those were probably my three big things. Apart from, of course, just the fact that you'd organized a fantastic event and that connecting with people is just incredibly important.
Yeah, yeah. For me, my takeaway with Stacy was that it's everybody's job to think about customer experience from the CEO to the intern. You don't have to have a specific title. You don't have to be in a specific department. It's everybody's role to put that customer hat on and look at it through the customer's eyes. From you, it was all about the power of workshops and the power of learning and practicing what you learn. The whole idea and the scenario you created around a competitor has just launched a new product a little bit before you're going in to make a major sales pitch was such a real world experience that I've had many of my colleagues experience. And the way you involved everybody by rolling up their sleeves and creating a value proposition, redefining the pitch, felt very real world. And to me was a take home of we should all be doing these workshops on a much more routine basis. From Andy, it was about the word engineering in the term prompt engineering. It's always tweaking, it's always refining, it's going back and forth with your LLM, it's using it and then realizing no, that wasn't quite right when you try and implement it and go back to the LLM. Was a real take home message for me.
Yeah, and that's interesting because we saw people talking about prompt engineering being the big next job. And I think that sort of drive has disappeared. Maybe it's just fallen out of the news. But it's something that certainly I took to heart very early on about trying to engineer and optimize the process of using AI so I'd get repeatable outputs. And so it's been really interesting for me to sort of watch a room full of people kind of come to that same realization. The AI is incredibly intelligent, for want of a word. I mean, it's artificial intelligence, but it's also incredibly stupid. So if we give it bad prompts, it's going to give us bad outputs. So it's, garbage in, garbage out. But if you give it sort of repeatable, really helpful inputs, and you're choosing the most appropriate model, you'll get pretty repeatable outputs. And I think that's a really powerful takeaway for me, that there's still a lot of AI adoption. There's a lot of learning for organizations to go through, and sort of that adoption and adaption, or journey.
Agreed. And there is no perfect prompt. And that's often why I end almost every one of my prompts these days with ask me anything before starting, because it will know what gaps it needs to fill before delivering the output you want. That's my little tip for this episode.
Yeah, I love that. And then I go back and recycle multiple times.
Exactly. Well, this
Excellent.
has been super fun. Thank you so much, Matt, not only for being my partner in crime on this podcast, but for just a spectacular presentation and workshop at the SAMPS event last week.
Well, thank you so much, Jasmine. It's been fun, and thank you for the invite to go to Boston. It was great to be a Brit in Boston, and to misquote the late great Paul Revere with "the bots are coming, the bots are coming," and I think we can say that they're already here. So thank you so much.
And thanks, everybody. Looking forward to seeing everybody in the new year on another episode of A Splice of Life Science Marketing. Bye for now.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.